Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of how to build a buffet with Hutch. As you can see, the buffet with Hutch is coming along quite nicely. We've got both pieces glued together. When we left off in part 1, we were getting ready to glue the assemblies together, and as you can see, they're glued together nicely. And now what we need to do is start working on the face frames for the Hutch and the buffet, the door assembly for the buffet, the top of the buffet, the top of the Hutch, and the trim. The rails and stiles for the buffet and Hutch, let's talk about the buffet first. The rail and stiles for the face frame of the buffet are all 1 1/4 inch wide by 3/4 inch thick. The rails, or the rail and stiles for the Hutch, are a little different. They're 1 1/4 inch wide for the stiles, but the rail is going to be 3 3/8 inch wide, and it calls for, in the plan, a nice sweeping curve, an arch across that rail. And I'm going to show you a little bit different design. I'm going to go with a double arch on mine, and we'll get into that when we lay out the pieces and the parts. Now, the plans don't go into detail as far as how the face frames are joined together. It's left up to the builder to use whatever they prefer. You can butt join them with biscuit joints. You can use pocket hole screws with the correct jig, or a pocket hole jig. Or you can do mortise and tenon joints, and that's what I'm going to do for my face frames on this. Is I'm going to use mortise and tenon joints to assemble them face frames. And once we get the 1x stock cut down for that, we'll lay out those mortise and tenons, get those glued together, and then get them attached to the buffet and Hutch. And once we get them attached, then we can go ahead and work on the top of both pieces and start getting the trim ready for them. Now, I decided, normally when I do a project, I very, very, very rarely stain wood. I just like natural woods. If I want a dark project, something that has a dark color to it, then I'll actually use a dark wood, such as a walnut, a cherry, so on and so forth. And when it comes to a lighter project, then I'll use a maple, an oak, and go from there. Now, in this particular project, I went ahead and decided to add some color to this, and I'm going to go with a General Finishes honey oil-based stain. And that honey stain just gives a nice tone to the oak. It's not too dark, it's not too light, it's just a nice tone. And then we'll finish it off with a clear coat. But let's go ahead and get into assembling and making these face frames, the mortise and tenon joints for them, get them together, and then we will get into this a little further. So let's get started. Okay guys, getting set up here. Let me first correct myself. Earlier in the video I said the stiles for the buffet and Hutch were 1 1/4 inch wide. They're actually 1 3/4 inch wide. I was mistaken. The stiles are 1 3/4 inch wide, and for the Hutch and the rail is 3 3/8. For the buffet, the rail and stiles are going to be 1 3/4 inch wide. Alright, so now that we're all corrected, I'm sorry about that, I didn't mean to get it wrong. This is basically going to be the layout for the Hutch. The top rail is going to be 3 3/8 inches wide, and the stiles are going to be 1 3/4 inch. And what the plan calls for is a nice flowing arch in this top rail. Well, I want from the center point of this rail, I want a double arch. So I'm going to lay out for that. And I've got some lines marked in here, and basically what you want to do is you want to take your stiles, and where your stiles are going to go ahead and make a mark on the rail on both sides. And we can set them aside for right now. We'll just work on this rail. What you want to do is, this rail is 24 3/4 inches in length, and we want to find the center, which is going to be 12 3/8. And from that center mark, and from our 2 marks here, we need to go ahead and find the center mark between where that stile stops in the center. We need to find the center mark there, which our length is 10 5/8. So our center mark is going to be at 5 5/16. Okay, so we'll go ahead and make a mark there. Now, and we're going to do the same thing for the other side. From the center, or find the center of this side, and it's going to be 5 5/16. Alright. Now, one thing that I did is basically I have a bow to draw the arches, and all it is a 36-inch yardstick with a piece of paracord, and I can create any type of or any size arch I want. Since this is a 36-inch yardstick, my center point is at 18 inches. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and put my 18-inch mark on that center line for this first arch, and from there, where the arch stops at the actual center line of the entire piece, and at the mark where the stile stops, I want to go ahead and make sure that my edges are touching and my center mark is stood on, and that gives me my layout for my arch. So I'm going to go ahead, it moves a little bit, tricky. I'm going to go ahead and draw that arch, and then I'm going to take and do the same thing. Put my 18-inch mark, and you can move it up and down depending on how. What you want is to determine the height is you're going to bring it down until the yardstick or the bow connects with your 2 outside marks from that center, and when it does, that gives you your arch. So we'll go ahead and draw that in. Alright, and then what you have, and let me turn it over so you can see it, is from my center mark here to where, let me go this way, to where my stile stops. This is my center point, and then that's my arch. And the same thing on this side. That's my arch. So I'm going to have a double arch on this particular piece. If you have any questions on that, if it's a little bit too confusing on my explanation, just comment on the video and I'll be happy to go over it again and repeat it. Alright guys, now the next thing we need to do is, once the mortise and tenons are cut for the face frames, the rail for the top of the hutch has these double arches in it, and I've already cut one to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, we drew this up, we drew out the outlines, and I show you how to do that with the little bow yardstick. But this is going to be the first arch, and then we're going to go ahead now and cut the second arch in. And the arch begins where the stile stops and then meets in the center. So we're going to go ahead and, my little, open into my tool. This is my little Craftsman bandsaw. I don't have a bandsaw. a real bandsaw. This is a bandsaw, but it's not a real bandsaw. One day, there's a lot of tools. Because of the size of my shop is the main reason that I don't have a lot of big machines or tools. Money's another. So the tools I have are kind of compact, should I say. And the thing about the bandsaw being so compact, this is a 10-inch bandsaw. The larger bandsaws with the larger throats in them allow for resawing and things like that. So I have to do my resawing on the table, so I have to do some workarounds. And so hopefully one day I'll have a larger bandsaw, more room, and all that wonderful stuff. And that's things to come down the road. Slowly but surely I'm trying to improve in areas that I need to improve. So let's go ahead and get this cut done for the second arch, and then we can go ahead and glue the face frame style and this rail together and get them attached to the top hutch. And so this will be the design for my top. Now I'm going to take it over and take my spoke shave, clean up these arches, and then I'll hit them with the sander to smooth everything out and get all of these bandsaw marks off of the Alright guys, now I got the face frame glued and clamped to the hutch, and we're getting ready to, once this is set up and everything, I can set it aside, then I can bring the buffet up here and glue its face frame on, and then we'll get ready to make the door frames and panels and everything. So one of the downfalls of having a small shop, very limited space, and of course, like as I said, because of the limited amount of room with projects and stuff, I couldn't set up my assembly table, so everything has to kind of be done in this area, so it's one thing at a time. Now, once we get the face frame glued onto the buffet, then we can go ahead and start cutting our door parts, get our panels put in them, get them glued together, and get ready to attach them. Now, the plans call for an inset door, a set of inset doors. I want a little bit of dimension to this project, so I'm looking at doing a 1/2-inch overlay door, and I'll know better in just a few minutes after I get the kind of a feel for things and a look at it. And if so, then we're going to vary from the plan just a little bit. The measurements are going to change. I'll go over them with you to change it from an inset to an overlay type door. Alright, see you in a minute. Alright guys, we're back over here at the buffet and hutch because there's some things I need to go over with you. A few little oversights in the plans that I talked with Michael Agate, and the changes being made. So if you downloaded the plans up to this point, there's some changes that you need to know about. One is the main one, the main really the only change. The face frames of the buffet and hutch, in the plans it calls for the stiles of the face frames to be mortised into the rails. Well, the proper way is that the stiles go all the way to the top, and then the rail mortises into the stiles. That way there's no end grain showing on the face frame. The hutch on this particular project, I already had the face frame glued in before I realized the oversight. But on the face frame for the buffet, I can go ahead and change it. And what I'm talking about is, you see the end grain there? The tenons were cut on the end of the stiles, and the mortises were cut into the rail and butted into there. Well, that's not the right way to do it. The stiles should go all the way up, and then the rail gets mortised into the stiles. That way it hides that end grain. And I'd like to thank Dwayne Eller for kind of pointing that out to me. He and I talk a lot about different things and go over different ideas and stuff like that, and he's been a great help with me with regards to my drums and just all this project. And he was hesitant to point it out at first, but I'm glad he did, because it was an oversight on my part. When I'm recording and everything, I'm focused on the project, and especially when I'm going off plans to try to do a build along for you guys, I didn't catch it. I missed it. And even Michael Agate, even he missed it when he drew up the plan. So it was just a slight oversight that's being repaired in the plan. So if you haven't downloaded them yet, when you download them at the end of this video, if you decide to download them, they'll be corrected by them. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to give you the new measurements of the face frame, stiles, and rail. That way you will know exactly what you need to be doing. And basically the rail measurement is the same. The stiles are just going to be longer, and then we're going to cut our tenons into the end of the rail, our mortise into the stiles, and assemble these the proper way. Now, unfortunately, the oversight was caught after I glued the buffet face frame on, and there's no getting it off. I tried, and without just destroying the whole piece. So it's going to stay, and I'm going to have to live with it. But I haven't glued on, as I said, the face frame for the buffet. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that down and redo it. And the great thing about it is I can go ahead and cut these pieces, and they're not going to go to waste, because I can use them on my door assemblies. They're just you know, long enough that I can go ahead and make my door parts out of them and everything. So let's get set up again. I'll give you the new measurements, and we'll start from scratch. Not scratch, but we'll start over on the face frames and everything and go from there. So just so you're aware, the dimensions on the face frames for both the buffet and hutch will be changing, and I'll give you those measurements in just a minute. Alright guys, like I said, I haven't glued on the face frame of the buffet yet, so I'm going to redo it. And as I said before, in the plans it shows the stiles being butted into the rail, when it should be the rail butting into the stiles. So we're going to change that up, and here's the new measurements. For the buffet, which is the bottom part, the stiles length are going to be 26 3/8. 26 3/8. And the rails length is going to be 22 11/16. And all the pieces, as I said earlier, are 1 3/4 wide for the buffet rail and stiles. So we'll go ahead and make that change and cut a new face frame, get it glued up and attached. That way we can start working on our door assembly. Now, the plans show 3 stiles, one in the center. The center stile is not as long. It is around 22 3/4 long, and it's got a little decorative curve, or round over at the bottom. I'm actually not going to do that, because of the fact that instead of inset doors, which the plans call for. I want to do a 1/2 inch overlay doors. So I'm going to add a bottom rail, and my bottom rail is going to be 22 and 11/16 wide, and that's going to account for the the 3/4 inch long tenons on each end, and they'll cut into the mortises here. And my bottom rail is going to be wider. I think it's going to be 3 3/8, about the same as the top rail of the hutch. The reason being is because I want to cut a decorative curve in the bottom of that rail to match my hutch rail, and I want to be able to have enough room for my overlay doors, because they're going to overlay by a 1/2 inch all the way around. And so I'll get further into that. I just want to kind of give you a heads up on the changes that I'm making to make this my own. That's the great thing about plans. You can go by the plans step by step and build a beautiful piece, or you can alter and make changes here and there to make the piece your own and be a little creative in something. And I want some dimension to this. I want layers to this hutch. Instead of a flat face with inset doors and all, I want layers. So I'm going to do an overlay style panel door. And that just kind of makes it my own. But you can very well go by the plans. You don't have to follow my changes. I'm just showing you what I'm doing to kind of make this piece my own, and my own little changes. Similar with the face frame of the hutch, it called for a single arch in the top, and I went ahead and put a double arch just for a little decorative touch, another little change. You can make small little changes and make a big difference in the piece. So let's get some new pieces cut for this face frame, get it laid out, and I'll give you all the details on all of my pieces for my face frame. Then we can get the sucker attached and ready for the doors, and we'll go from there, okay? Okay guys, once again back over at the bandsaw, I went ahead and finished up and remade the face frame pieces for the bottom buffet, and this time they're proper. The bottom rail, I went ahead and made a little wider. The bottom rail is 3 inches wide and still the same 1/4 inch thick tenon, 3/4 inches long on both ends. We've got a total length of 23 3/4. Now I know I said 23 and 11/16 earlier in the video. Go ahead and make it 3/4. I mean, it's another 16th, and it'll give you some room to play with and stuff. And it's a nice even number instead of worrying about 16ths. 23 3/4 for your rail lengths will be fine. And I'm sorry about all the confusion with all the measurements and everything. Like I said, we got the plans worked out, and I can't believe I overlooked that, but here we go again. So okay, so I got all the pieces done, and what I did is on this bottom rail, like I said, it's 3 inches wide. I went ahead and where the tenon ends, I went ahead and went 1/2 inch in on both ends, and I made a mark. I found my center, and I made a mark there. From the center, and from that 1/2 inch mark on both sides, I found the center mark for that. And then I went ahead and used my bow, my yardstick bow, and drew And I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but you'll see it when I cut it out. I drew my 2 arches connecting those lines. So let's get it done. Now I'm cutting on the waist side of my line just a little bit because I'm going to take my spoke shave and clean it up, and then I'll be able to use my sanders, you know, to get these arches nice and smooth. But I left myself a little bit on side the line, that way I can sand up to it. So now that I have my bottom rail done, I can go ahead and take the spoke shave, clean up these bandsaw blade marks, take it over to the spindle sander, get it sanded up and cleaned up, and get it attached. Alright, okay guys, second time's a charm. Got all the frame pieces done for the buffet. Wanted to give you some measurements before I glue this up. The center stile is 22.5 inches long by 1.25 inches wide, of course, and you got 2 3/4 inch tenons on the end of that, and once again the tenons are 1/4 inch thick, 3/4 inches long, 1.25 inches wide. Alright, our outside stiles are 26 3/8 inches long, and they get mortises, one at the top, one at the bottom. Our top and bottom rail are 22 3/4, and they get the 2 tenons on the end, and then they get a mortise in the center, which accepts the center rail. Now we can go ahead and glue everything together, and once it's glued together, we can go ahead and get it attached to the buffet, and then get our door measurements and layouts done. Be careful with the glue. Some glue on there, it's dripping everywhere. Same thing with the top. A glue brush is handy. I just don't have any right now in the shop, but we will make do with what we've got. all that glue in there. A little bit too much glue. You get too much glue inside your slots, your mortises, it causes a suction. So I do apologize about the oversights and errors in my earlier videos because of the difference in the plans, or the mistake in the plans, but hopefully you'll be able to understand the corrections. Hopefully I've explained them well enough. If you have any questions, of course you can leave a comment on the video, and at the bottom of this video, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have regarding it. Alright guys, I'm getting ready to glue the face frame on to the buffet, and I had a few little tips. I think you've seen me do it in another video. When I glue face frames on, I take little brads, they're about an inch long, and I put one in each corner. And then once I get the brads installed, I go ahead and just cut off the heads. They're little brad nails. And then that way, when I put the glue on, I can align it allows me to set the face frame up here, get it aligned the way I want, and then the clamps will pull the face frame down onto these brads, and it'll help secure it a little bit, as well as the glue. And if you remember earlier in the video when I was gluing the face frame together, I didn't have a glue brush. I was talking about my stock of glue brushes being empty, and lo and behold, while I was waiting for the glue to dry on the face frame, I referred back to one of Steve Ramsey's videos where he talked about these little dollar store brushes, similar to the synthetic glue brush that they sell at Rockler and things like that. And I thought, now I think I have one of those in my kitchen. So I went up to the house, and lo and behold, I had a set of them. So I went ahead and borrowed one. I didn't need it anyway. I don't use it that much anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and, so now I have me a nice little glue brush. I cut the tip off a little bit to, shorten up the bristles on it. But, so now we're all set. I got me a glue brush for the shop, and I still got one in the kitchen, so I'm good to go. Alright, let's get some glue on this, and then we'll get the face frame lined up. But yeah, a lot of times when I'm killing time and watching, waiting for glue to dry, watching glue dry, should I say, I kill time. I've got a computer in the shop, so I'll watch a video or something, and just kind of to pass the time, because I've already cut all the pieces for my door frames and everything, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But while I had nothing to do, I decided to watch some videos, and as you know, I'm a big fan of Steve Ramsey's videos, and I was watching one of his videos, and he was talking about that glue brush, and I thought, hey, now there's an idea, because I have one of them glue brushes. So we'll give it a try. And wow. Yeah, nice, nice, nice. Sweet. Alright, well, I have to say that works quite well. We're getting closer. As soon as I get this face frame and everything clamped up onto this buffet here, then I'm going to go ahead and get my measurements for the top of the buffet, and get the top of the buffet and the top of the hutch cut down, those two pieces. Then I'm going to start my doors. Now I got my door pieces cut down to their final dimensions. They're 1 3/4 inches wide, and I'll have to get you the lengths and everything when we get to that part. But they're going to have a 1/4 inch panel in them. And man, that brush works really well. I love it. So we'll be putting the dados in the door rails and stiles for the panel, to accept the panel. We'll get them glued up and assembled, and then we'll get everything attached and put this thing together, and then we'll get a finish put on it before we put the back panel on. A lot of times, you know, you can pre-finish, you know, before you do a glue up or anything like that. You can pre-finish your parts, and I was debating on whether or not to pre-finish, and I decided not to. I figured I would wait till everything was glued together, because I want to make sure that, you know, I wanted to make sure that all my glue squeeze out and everything was cleaned up, everything was sanded nicely, the fronts or the sides, should I say. Well, that works quite nicely. If I get enough glue on here, we'll be good to go. Nice, nice, nice. All right. Love it. Make sure you determine the face of your frame. See what you want, you know, to be the exposed face. I went ahead and the face frame has already been sanded. It's been sanded down to 220 on both sides, even though I didn't need to sand the other side that it's getting glued. But alright, now that I have it flush with the top is what I want, now I need to go ahead and make sure that I have my proper overhang on both sides. And my overhang is a little less than 1/8 of an inch. Sweet. Alright guys, well, I tell you what, due to the length of the video, the project is done, it's built, all the video is shot. But during the editing, I realized that my video is 2.5 hours long, and nobody is going to sit through a 2.5 hour long video on YouTube. It's not going to happen. So part 2 has turned into part 2, 3, 4, and 5, and all the videos are going to be uploaded, you know, together. So there won't be any wait time in between the videos, but they're just going to be shorter to make them somewhat more tolerable. You know, not like that. You don't like hearing my voice or anything, but it's just it's a long time, and I didn't realize how much video and how much content I had in this, and if I tried to just take what I have and make it into a 30-minute or 45-minute video, it would lose so much detail, it wouldn't even be worth making the video. So I want to keep what I have, and I just want to break the video up into individual parts. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to end part 2 here, and then we'll continue on into part 3, 4, and 5.